So I started the nail doctor when I was 19 years old. I had decided to come home from school. I was attending UNCG at the time. I did about 3 semesters there. And I came home and I decided to open up a suite, and I was trying to figure out what my business name was going to be. So at the time it was just the nail doctor. And then I actually ended up breaking my lease to my suite 6 months in because I found my salon. My brand idea was to, still have me, still brand myself, but have this group of the best creatives in Charlotte all in one building. My mom was actually the first entrepreneur that I've ever been around. She opened up her first business when I was like 8, and she didn't have staff, and she didn't have a whole bunch of capital, so I was the staff. So I started working my first job when I was 8 years old, working for her. I was doing the books, and I was answering phone calls, and I was the front desk lady. And my love for working for yourself and kind of creating this space started at that age. When I was 17, I was working as a stylist at Nordstrom, and I wasn't really into it. I didn't like, working for a corporate company, and so I ended up going to nail school because I graduated from high school 6 months early. And in that time, I finished school in a month and a half. I finished with honors, and I just started building my business from there. And so the first thing that I did was I worked on a salon on my college campus at UNCG, and I worked there for about 6 months. And it was really hard, to be honest. I was the youngest in the building. I was 18 years old. I started working out of my apartment, and I was hustling all the time, and that's kind of when I figured out school wasn't for me. In between classes, like if I had like a 2-hour break in between classes, I was taking appointments. I never went to parties. Like, I was the girl, when girls were on their way to parties, they would make a stop at my apartment to come get their nails done before they left to the party. So that was really fun. And from there, I was just, I was really building my brand and like stacking up my money and everything. I opened up a salon suite when I was 19. And that was crazy because I didn't have any clientele in Charlotte. So I just kind of like stepped out on faith, and I was like, I'm just opening a salon in Charlotte. And I had to hustle for clientele every month, but I always did it. And then the day I got my suite, I remember I was telling my mom, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a salon. I'm not gonna renew my lease. And she was like, okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, we'll see. And at 6 months, I was telling my landlords, like, hey, I need to figure out how to break my lease because I found a salon, I'm leaving. And I had no money. I was 20 years old, and there are no banks in the world that are giving business loans to a 20-year-old. So I literally was working 2 months straight for every dollar that I put into the salon. So I was working like 13, 14 hours straight, no breaks. And as soon as I got money, I was putting it right back out. And it was crazy. It was hectic. Like, I was burnt out, but it was such a labor of love because I knew that I put everything I had into my business. And it was amazing watching it come into fruition and all these people coming out to support me. And, I have clients that travel from New York and Connecticut and California and Florida, or even as close as Raleigh or Greensboro or Greenville. And then 5 months into being open, the pandemic happened.
Effective Friday, all barbers, salons, nail salons, spas, massage parlors, etc. will close until the second week of April.
So we went into quarantine, and I was terrified. I spent so much time crying, and I remember we got the orders to shut down 2 days before we had to do it. So we had to shut down on the 25th. The governor made the announcement the 23rd. And I cried and I cried and I cried. But one thing about me, I won't stay in those spaces too long. And so I was like, okay, what's next? And I opened up my books. The 24th, I worked from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then I went home and I started working because we had to be closed by the 25th at 5. So I worked from 4:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I was like, we're gonna go out with a bang. And I cleaned up my shop, closed it up, and I went home and I cried for 2 days. And I was like, that's all you get. You can only cry for those 2 days. And I was like, okay, what's next? Because at the time I still had a full staff, and I had 7 people to look out for and take care of. And I went home and I was like, okay, girl, how are we gonna figure this out? So I started doing at-home pedicure kits. I was making press-ons. I was doing online classes. And so I was actually able to pay my staff twice during the pandemic and pay all of my bills on time during the pandemic. And I was able to move out. So it was, because I was still living at home, I was only 21. So it was a really big blessing and it was a challenge, and it made me like 10 times more ready to come home through work. And it was amazing that God saw me through a pandemic, because I knew so many people who had shut down.